The Italian Renaissance began in the 14th century and lasted until the 17th century. This marked the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of a new way of thinking about human life. After people of the Middle Ages studied ancient works of Greeks and Romans, they realized that earlier civilizations lived differently. This way of thinking was called humanism. Humanism is defined as an outlook or system of thought attaching prime importance to human rather than divine or supernatural matters. Humanist beliefs stress the potential value and goodness of human beings, emphasize common human needs, and seek solely rational ways of solving human problems. This is a time period where famous paintings emerged, such as The Creation of Adam, painted in 1512 by Michelangelo. This painting illustrates the biblical creation narrative from the book of Genesis, in which God gives life to Adam, the first man. In this painting, God is depicted as an elderly, white-bearded man wrapped in a swirling cloak, while Adam, on the lower left, is completely nude. God's right arm is outstretched to impart the spark of life from his own finger into that of Adam. Adam's left arm is extended in a pose, mirroring God's, a reminder that man is created in the image and likeness of God. Another perspective on this painting is that Adam's finger and God's finger are not touching. It gives the impression that God is the giver of life and is reaching out to Adam, who is not on the same level yet of God. The next painting that emerged during the Italian Renaissance is The Birth of Venus. Produced in 1486 by Sandro Botticelli, it is a painting that depicts Venus arriving at the shore after her birth when she had emerged from the sea fully grown. One last famous painting from the Italian Renaissance is the Mona Lisa, painted by Leonardo da Vinci in 1517. It is a half-length portrait painting that has been described as the best known, the most visited, the most written about, and the most sung about painting in the world. The Mona Lisa bears a strong resemblance to many Renaissance depictions of the Virgin Mary, who was at the time seen as an ideal for womanhood. The woman sits upright with her arms folded, a sign of her reserved posture. Her gaze is fixed on the observer, and the woman appears alive to an unusual extent. Filippo Brunelleschi was born in 1377 in Florence, Italy, and died April 15, 1446. The early life of Brunelleschi is still a mystery today, but we do know he was a master goldsmith and architect. He studied Roman architecture in Rome for 10 years and had no formal training in architecture. However, he did train as a goldsmith and a sculptor and enrolled in the Arte della Seta, the Silk Merchant's Guide, which also included goldsmiths, metalworkers, and bronze workers. Brunelleschi was one of the pioneers of the early Renaissance architecture in Italy. He was the first modern engineer and innovative problem solver, building his major work, the dome of Cathedral of Santa Maria. In 1401, Brunelleschi competed against Lorenzo Ghiberti, a young rival, and 5 other sculptors for the commission to make the bronze relief for the door of Florence Baptistry. Brunelleschi's entry was called the Sacrifice of Isaac. It was his high point of his short career as a sculptor. However, Ghiberti won the commission. Brunelleschi was disappointed in losing the baptistry commission and decided to focus his talents more in architecture. During 1410 and 1415, Brunelleschi rediscovered the principles of linear perspective. Linear perspective is defined as a type of perspective used by artists in which the relative size, shape, and position of objects are determined by drawn or imagined lines converging at a point on the horizon. Brunelleschi used mirrors to sketch the Florence Baptistry in perfect perspective. He was able to mathematically calculate the scale of objects within a painting in order to make them appear realistic. It was a monumental discovery, and soon artists were using Brunelleschi's method of perspective to astonishing effects in their paintings. Brunelleschi's original perspective studies are long gone, but he directly influenced many others. Brunelleschi invented many mechanisms to aid him in his large-scale architectural projects. One mechanism created was a 3-speed hoist with an intricate system of gears, pulleys, screws, and drive shafts, all powered by a single oxen turning a wooden tiller. In August of 1418, another architectural competition was announced for the dome. Just as before, Ghiberti and Brunelleschi entered. However, this time Brunelleschi won and received the commission to build the dome. The Florence Cathedral dome began in 1296 and was structurally completed by 1436. Brunelleschi encountered many problems when structurally completing the dome and had to invent his own machinery to help him. Brunelleschi's interest extended into mathematics, engineering, and the study of ancient monuments. He also invented hydraulic machinery and intricate clockworks, all of which have not survived to today. Brunelleschi also invented fortifications used by Florence in its military struggles against Pisa and Siena. He was also active briefly in the world of shipmaking in 1427 when he built an enormous ship named Battalione, which was used to transport marble from Florence to Pisa up River Arno. In 1421, Brunelleschi was granted what is thought to be one of the first modern patents for his invention of the river transport vessel. The great Filippo Brunelleschi was an important person in the development of the Italian Renaissance. He achieved many large-scale projects which involved architecture, sculptures, mathematics, and humanism. He died April 15, 1446, and he's buried at the crypt of the Cathedral of Florence.